Thank you so much for joining me on a Saturday morning. I know that everyone's got important things to do, especially maybe even seniors that you have to care for at home that you may have had to leave at home to attend this. So I fully understand. And I will promise to make this an engaging and useful experience for all of you. It is also being recorded for your reference. You can watch it later. And if I can provide the slides for you to take. Now you don't have to take notes or pictures unless you want to, of course. So today's topic is the T5 Ts, or what I call the T5 Ts, the top 5 tips to find the best possible care fit. And this is part of a series, as you're probably aware, of seminars. I'm required to mention. I'm required to mention that this seminar series is provided to the community free of charge with the Elderly Affairs Division, and it's funded by a federal Older Americans Act. So I appreciate and thank the Elderly Affairs Division for sponsoring this so that it's no cost to you directly. I'm sorry, this is having technical difficulties. There we go. Okay, I always start my presentations with a little bit of background of what I'm trying to accomplish. And this quote is something that is very important to me. It's guided me over the years. And it's from a long-term care commission study that was done over 10 years ago now through the state. Basically, unless people have basic information, they're unlikely to really spend time making plans to plan for long-term care. And another really important quote that is also from 10 years ago now is from a different study. And the stress of navigating this system that is fragmented, there's not a lot of central places to go for information, is very stressful, and the stress is compounded by the fact that it's just difficult to even find information about elderly care and services and everything. So this really guides a lot of what I do with Kupuna Care Pair, and it's been a long journey for me. And I want to share with you that I have a lot of experience working with seniors and working in this space. I took over my family's care home in 2011, caring Manoa. And we've been operating in Manoa Valley for a very long time. I'm very pleased to announce that we had a annual inspection yesterday, and yet this is our second year that of all of our facilities, there's no citations, which is really not a very common thing in the senior care space. Usually, everyone gets cited or get some sort of deficiency in some way or another, but my care home didn't get any citations this year and in previous years. And I'll be the first to say that my care home is not the best care home out there, or not the most appropriate for people either, but it is a great care home, as I'm part of it. But there's a lot of factors that go into what makes it the best fit for people, and we're going to talk about that. I also started, over the years, as I've been marketing the care home and talking to families, I came to realize that those quotes are very true. It's so hard to find information about senior care and be able to really understand the differences. So in 2013, I started doing outreach presentations to the community just to understand what is the difference between a care home and a foster home and a nursing home and all these different types of care out there. So you're attending a seminar that is a culmination of all those efforts, and I really look forward to having you join with other seminars that I'll be doing as well. So I'm going to start this seminar with a pop quiz. It's a little early in the morning, but it's not a very difficult quiz. So searching for care, in multiple choice, searching for care is always A, a slow and time-consuming process, B, a stressful process, C, high stakes with potentially big consequences, or D, all of the above. Okay, so who thinks A? Okay, No? Oh, yeah, okay. Who thinks B? Okay. Okay. Who thinks C? Yep. Okay. Who thinks D? Oh, I'm seeing the majority of hands would say that it's all of the above. And the answer is, oh, I bet you weren't expecting that. The answer is always C, high stakes with potentially big consequences. Now, what does that mean? Of course, it can be stressful. Of course, you have these issues. Searching for care is always a slow and time-consuming process if you don't know how to go about it. A lot of families are reinventing or inventing the wheel as they go along. And I was just talking to John over here about how going through that process, it was very difficult to know what there is out there. And so it's very slow and time consuming if you're having to just start from scratch. It's stressful if you're in a rush. And that's one of the most difficult situations to be in, is if your loved one maybe is hospitalized or suddenly has an illness and they need care, and now you have to find something immediately. Families are always put in this situation, unfortunately, where they may be given a week or so to find a care facility or find a caregiver to come to their home. And it's very stressful when there's just too much information out there and it's very disorganized to then say, well, I have to make this decision, which is definitely high stakes and has big consequences to it. Senior care, as you may be aware, can be costly. It can be as costly as buying a house. And it's very consequential. It can be as consequential as writing the final chapters of your loved one's life story. I mean, it really can literally be life and death information. So it is high stakes with potentially big consequences. But it's also a very meaningful opportunity. And at my care home, I find that when the conditions are right, or when the family feels relief, then suddenly it all comes together and it's like the cherry on top, or that final chapter of their loved one's life story now is just really worth the whole book that came before it. So a very great opportunity if it's done in a meaningful way. And it's all of the above, really. It can be all of the above, but you can be confident that you can succeed with the right tools. So that's hopefully what I'm going to be providing you today, as well as for the rest of my seminar series. A little cheeky thing, but it's true. I find this happening for families often, and I meet with many families every week at least. We talk to some families who are looking for care. Now, the top 5 tips to ease the pain of the process is a journey. And this whole fishing analogy, of course, if I feed you a fish for a day, then that's all you get. But if I'm helping you to give you the tools, then you'll know how to go about this. There is homework after this. You don't have to turn in the homework, and you don't have a quiz or anything at the end of this, but there will be homework for you to do to think about these issues as you're navigating this experience with your loved ones or for yourself even. It's a lot of work. So here are my top 5 tips. And we'll get into it really in depth, but only you are you. You have to assume, then adjust, and then adapt. You research only for relevance. You revel in the relationship. As you can see, I like the alliteration here. And you have the eyes of the prize. Okay, so we're going to get through all of these things. And it's really, with these 5 tips, you're going to feel a little bit more confident and feel more engaged to be able to find the best fit, whether it's at home, whether it's going to a facility, whether it's for your neighbor. Everybody's situation is different. And we talk about that in the first one here. Only you are you. Okay, who likes chocolate ice cream? Yeah, I see some hands. Who likes vanilla ice cream? That's my favorite. How about strawberry? Okay, if I came to you and say, look, for you chocolate people out there, you gotta try this. It's the best ice cream you'll ever have. Or let's say you came to me and you said, I'm looking for some ice cream to eat. What flavor should I get? And I say, you gotta get vanilla. It's the best. Everybody's situation is different, and what will work for you or work for me may or may not work for you. A lot of families will get advice, sometimes solicited, sometimes unsolicited advice. And if they're in a bind, they're going to ask around. They're going to say to their friends, I know that your dad was at a care home, or I know that your mom had a caregiver come to the house. How did that go? Maybe I should call that person. Maybe I should take a tour for that facility. And it might work, but it might not work. And because every one of us is different, even spouses. Do we have spouses in the room here? Okay, tell me that you're the same people. Not true, right? I'm definitely very different from my spouse. And what will work for me is not going to work for her. So everybody has a different niche. You say tomato, I say tomato. I'm the flamingo, or I'm these smaller birds. Everyone needs something different. And so I always caution when people are getting advice, it's very good to hear other experiences, but it doesn't mean that it's going to always work for you. The key to this process of knowing about who you are and figuring out the priorities is to look at what do you want versus what do you really need, because we can't have everything we want. And I hate to hear that. I'm a kind of person that I do want everything that I want, but it's just not possible. And so we have to start thinking, well, what is the most important when it comes to my loved one's care? I forgot to ask, who has a senior at home or that you're taking care of? Yeah, the majority of you, right? Two seniors, right? A mother and father, Nina, right? And their needs may be quite different from each other. So there wouldn't be one size fits all for both parents. They also need, looking at their likes and dislikes are maybe not the same as what they really should have, or maybe what they could afford, or maybe what the care will be provided, right? And so you have to really look at your priorities. I'm going to go through a series of priorities that kind of overlap or have a relationship with each other. And I'm just going to hide this because it keeps showing up. These are different priorities, and we'll get into a little bit of detail about it, but the circles indicate that there's some relationship between the staff ratio or the price of care, or the staff qualifications and the price, or the ratio and the qualifications. And these are three that, especially in a facility setting, but even if you were to hire somebody to come to your home, is a factor. So, just push this. Okay, so qualifications means, is this person a nurse? Are they a geriatrician? Are they a nurse aide? What does your loved one need? Some people have medical conditions where it's very sensitive. Other people just need help with maybe walking through the door or getting out of bed, right? And so you want to ask yourself, what really do you need for your care or for your loved one's care? Because that's going to affect the price. The higher qualification, a nurse is going to be more expensive than hiring a nurse aide, or a physician is going to be more expensive than a nurse. And so the price will change in tandem with the level of qualification. The staff ratio is something that sometimes people don't think about in a facility especially, but even at home. The staff ratio at home, let's say you're taking care of your parent, is a 1 caregiver to a 1 care receiver ratio, a 1-to-1 ratio. That's the most generous ratio that there is. However, there's a lot of cost to that. I think, not to put you on the spot, Nina, but we're talking about, you're having to work while you're taking care of your parents. Do you have to, anyone else in that similar situation where you're working, but also trying to care for your parents maybe overnight? There's a lot of cost to that. Not just the monetary price, but cost in your energy, cost in a lot of different ways. And so the ideal staff ratio has a trade-off between the attention that the senior gets versus the price that it's going to cost. People in an assisted living facility or one of these large type of places, the ratio might be 1 caregiver to 12 residents or 15 residents. And And so you want to ask yourself, what's the most ideal? Are there mobility issues? Does somebody have dementia? Does somebody need a lot of assistance? Because that ideal staff ratio is going to affect the price and maybe what you need. If I need a lot of hands-on care, maybe I really don't need a nurse involved. Maybe I just need somebody to help me ambulate or help me to get out of bed. And therefore, I don't need a high qualification. I just need more attention. Something to think about as you go through this process. Another overlapping priority is physical abilities, cognitive abilities, and the size of the care setting. So the care setting could be at home. Many of you are taking care of seniors at home, right? That may or may not match somebody's physical abilities. Sometimes people at home have to deal with steps or stairs or getting into the shower. That might not work well. But physical abilities are, can your loved one really keep up with what's expected of them? Now at home, there's no expectation because your loved one is at home. But in, say, a facility setting, maybe they're expected to be able to ambulate a little bit. Many people in an assisted living facility will be asked to leave if they can no longer ambulate. So what are some of the physical abilities? What are some of the cognitive abilities that your senior has or your loved one has? And can they really make connections to other people? At home, that's not very important because they're maybe with you. And if they do have cognitive decline or dementia, then it's not really a big deal. But I'll tell you, I know of seniors who live in big facilities, and it's like being in the high school cafeteria all over again. There are mean seniors out there, and they will be exclusive. They will sometimes talk bad behind other seniors' backs. They do all kinds of nasty things to each other in some of these big facilities. And it's sad to hear, but that's where it's very important to match the care setting size to your loved one's physical and cognitive abilities. I had a former resident in my care home who the kids had to move him out because they needed space for their mom. So they moved their mom into my home and they took him to an assisted living facility. In my home, which was smaller, he was the top dog. He was the biggest fish in the bowl. When he went to the assisted living facility, suddenly he couldn't connect to people because his abilities were much lower than the abilities of the other seniors there. And so literally they excluded him. They said, I don't want to sit with him at the dining table. I don't want to interact with him because he's too slow. He has Parkinson's. It made the other residents of this facility feel like they were a little bit depressed. And so he became depressed in this bigger place. And so this is one thing that we may not think about, but the size of a setting really has a relationship to what your loved one can and can't do. It's very important. And we can, if you have more questions about that, we can bring it up in Q&A. There's the price of care, there's guilt, and then there's how nice the place is. Okay, now, there's all sorts of nice things about certain facilities. They may have like outings, they may have musicians that come, they may have a huge dining hall with menus 24/7 that you can go out and dine at. But those are what I call the bells and whistles, and it might be more expensive. But maybe I'm paying that higher price because I feel guilty. As a child, I feel like my mom needs the best because otherwise, what does that say about me as her son, right? And so paying to feel less guilty can be expensive. And maybe that's okay. That might be fine. But then we have to look at, the longer term budget. And so there's a relationship between the setting and how nice the place is and all the nice things that they have and the price. The nicer it is, generally the price is going to be higher. If I feel guilty about a place, I'm going to look at more of a nice kind of place, but maybe it's more expensive than I should be paying for. Maybe that place is not even really meeting the needs of my loved one. Or maybe like we talked about, it's too big for my loved one, but I feel like because they have all these activities and they have a fun programming, or there's all these other seniors that my loved one can socialize with, then it's probably the better place. When in reality, if we're on a budget, then some of these things have to maybe go by the wayside. So that's another overlapping thing. What are my care needs in the future? What's my budget now? And again, what's the setting? Am I gonna have the luxury of being at home? So, future care needs, there's kind of a silver lining to certain conditions like Parkinson's or dementia. Those are very tragic diseases, terrible in what it does to a person's body, mind, and spirit. But there is a little bit, a very, very, very thin silver lining to that, in that you will know sort of the progression of that disease. With Parkinson's, we know eventually that mobility becomes an issue. We know eventually that swallowing becomes an issue. We know that somebody is going to need a lot more hands-on care at that point. And so being able to understand what those future care needs are, to then say, well, maybe I should stretch my budget out for later, because more care, higher care is always more expensive down the road. And maybe therefore I should think about a setting that's not going to be as glitzy, but it's going to be in my budget. So this is also a very common priority check here. And then, should I get my care now, or should I wait for my first choice? Like I know of this caregiver who could come to my home, but maybe I'm going to just wait to hire her because she's busy. And so my current care needs, this is the most clearest and certain path forward of what I should do is based on my current care. But maybe something's not available, and that caregiver is with another client at their home. And so should I wait for that first choice, or should I act on it now? And if I act on it now, maybe there's some downsides. Maybe I don't get a private room in this facility, or maybe the location is further away than I want to be at. How urgent is it? And everybody's got different urgencies, but it's a very important thing, because some families, I hate to say it, but some families wait too long, and then they're at risk of injury, or they're at risk of something happening such that their options narrow. So that's another one. And then this one is maybe not often talked about. Who is the person that coordinates the care versus decides on the finances versus decides on the healthcare decisions? In the most ideal situation, these are the same person that does all three. But oftentimes, especially families that have like 3, 4, 5 kids, they kind of break it up, right? And the person who coordinates the care is the one who has to live the day-to-day challenges. It can be really tough for them, especially if they're the one taking care of their loved one at home. Whereas the person who decides the finances, their priority is kind of thinking more long-term. Well, gosh, are we going to afford this, right? And then the person who decides on healthcare, they're the one that legally has to make the tough decisions. Should we pull the plug? Should we look at medications that are going to be not covered by insurance, and now we got to pay more out of pocket? And so sometimes these are competing priorities with competing personalities, especially if it's maybe my sibling that, she had stolen my toys when I was a kid, and now I don't get along with her, or we don't talk because she didn't come to my wedding, something like that, right? So it can be a tricky thing when these roles are different people. Yeah, you're giving me a sigh. You know that situation? I tell you, we've had that situation in my care home, and it's not easy. It's tricky when these roles are held by different people. So how to come together as a team is not always the easiest thing. Those are just, I know that was a lot of information, but it's some common priorities that as you think about your own situation, you have to kind of say, well, that's going to be appropriate or not appropriate based on these factors. Now, what happens if there's too many cooks in the kitchen? That's kind of what I was talking about just now, right? Anyone know that situation? Okay, you're my star witness today. When there's too many cooks in the kitchens, multiple siblings, that last situation we just talked about, what happens? My recommendation is that when there's too many cooks in the kitchen, and especially if you are the person that's got to do the day-to-day care, it's so hard. My recommendation is everybody only gets maybe 1, maybe 2 must-haves when you're going through this process. Okay, non-negotiable, like it's got to be less than $5,000 a month, or mom's got to have a private bedroom, or mom has to stay at home some non-negotiable. Maybe you only get one, maybe you only get half of one even. But then once everyone puts that out there, then you all collectively decide, okay, look, these are our non-negotiables. Everybody gets one. And then everything else, when you say, oh, okay, mom gets the private room. Oh, but it's too far away from the kitchen. Or yeah, we found this facility, this care home, but it's out in like Waianae. Those are all things that have to fall by the wayside because we have only one or two non-negotiable must-haves when you have too many cooks in the kitchen. It has to happen. Otherwise, everybody's got an opinion and everybody's going to share that opinion. And usually, as I've seen it over the years, it all falls on usually that one very dutiful daughter who's got to take care of their parents at home. Oh my gosh, yeah. So we know the situation and it's painful for the person that's got to do the day-to-day. Okay, so that's the first tip, and that's going to be the biggest, longest tip we have. But it's the most important in this process as you think about, well, what's going to be the best situation for my loved one at home, maybe in a facility as they move out. The second tip is, and you can't really see it here, but it says assume, adjust, and adapt. Okay, we have this butterfly, right, that goes from the caterpillar all the way to the butterfly. And that, as you and I age, we become butterflies. And there's always change, right? Nobody's going to stay still or static. And you have to always assume that or know that it's going to change. And sometimes it changes really fast. Maybe my loved one was kind of risky at home. And I was saying, well, dad is okay at home, but I got to go work. So he's got to just take care of himself. And then what if he falls? And now suddenly the situation has changed where he can't be at home anymore. Sometimes it happens very rapidly. So usually my advice is to act now, but plan for the later, because there's ways that you can think about this. And again, nobody has a crystal ball into the future. But there are some ways that you can anticipate things changing. What are my health diagnoses? Do I, again, like the Parkinson's I mentioned, that's going to be kind of a progressive thing, or dementia. What are my care needs down the road? If I have Parkinson's, eventually I'm going to need somebody to help me walk. I maybe need somebody to help me even feed myself and help me swallow. They may have to kind of chop up or puree my food down the road. And so what are my care needs going to be in the future as we go along? Also, my budget. How is this going to go for the next 5, 10, 20 years? That picture of me and my resident, she was my favorite 107-year-old out there, really. And probably no time in her life did she expect that she was going to live to 107, but she did. So budget is something that we always kind of look at. Ambitions. This is one that we don't think about too much, but what is my loved one's ambitions going to be down the road? A lot of times kids think like, well, dad's always been a runner, a marathon runner, and so he's going to want to be active as he ages. But really, as we age, sometimes our ambitions for how much activity we have, or the type of things that we do, like cooking, for instance, they change over time. And it's easy to get stuck in the past when really, if you can plan out, well, if dad's mobility is not so strong, then maybe he's not going to really be interested in as much walking. Not to say that we shouldn't try, but the plan might not be for him to walk every day at that point, right? So always plan for the future, but how far ahead is really up to each of you. Sometimes you need to plan just for the next year, because who knows, maybe the situation is very, very unstable. Others, I often hear of, every week I get a call from some family that says, my mom is 80 and she needs a care home, and I'm interested in moving her in. 80 years old is very young in my book. I don't know if any of you are 80, but probably not. And that's still very young. So it's, how far ahead that one person should think about, especially when they say, oh, my mom's got a little bit of dementia, but she's very physically healthy. Oh gosh, that person really needs to think maybe not just to 82 or 85, maybe 90. Again, Millie, my 107-year-old, kept on chugging away. So it's thinking ahead is a very important thing. And there's little tips that you can, or categories of things that you should think ahead on. Okay, the third tip is to research for relevance. I'm sorry, this Zoom thing is in the way, but it says research for what's relevant. And what I mean by relevant is for your situation, okay? Having a lot of options and having the time to research because you're not in a rush are two of the biggest luxuries you can have in this whole process. You all are doing really well because you're attending this now and you probably don't need it right now. So you have the time to think ahead and plan and make a plan. And that is, I tell you, there's not a lot of families that have that luxury. At the same time, it makes it a little bit more complicated as you go through this process. And so there are, oh gosh, many different types of senior care out there. Home care, nursing facility care, adult residential care homes, unlicensed care homes, long-term care facilities, Medicaid facilities, assisted living, independent living. There's so many things out there. Over 1,800 care facilities and care services like home care agencies in the state. 1,800. That's a lot. And I'm glad that there is. In fact, it's not enough for our population, but that's a lot. How do you decide this, right? Well, the key in my book, oh yeah, see, okay, look, this is a map of Waipahu. The blue and the brown dots are foster homes and care homes. Now, which one would I pick for my loved one, right? They kind of all look like the same umbrella. And on Oahu, we have a lot of different types of options available. There's all these daycare facilities, daycare programs, there's home care agencies, there's all these care homes. There's 1,000 foster care homes out there on this island alone. So of the 1,800 facilities, you really just need one, or 1,800, even like just the daycare or the home care agency, you just need that one caregiver to come to your home and be wonderful to your loved one, right? So it's very overwhelming. That says an overwhelming supply. The cost is staggering. This starts at $1,000 and it goes up to $13,000. You go to different types of level of care, it gets more and more and more expensive, especially in nursing facilities on the red here, right? And so how do I choose based on my budget, right? It's important to know what's out there and what's relevant to your situation. We always need to know what we don't know about the market. And so I highly encourage you to do research on that. And I have some tools for you on that. So when you're researching for relevance of what's out there in the market, just first understand just the basics. What are the differences between home care or daycare or care homes or nursing homes or foster homes? Just very basics. Then from there, know that every service, every facility has some kind of non-negotiable thing. Let's take a home care agency, for instance. You need somebody to come to your house to take care of your mom. And every home care agency will have some sort of non-negotiable that says maybe you have to hire them for 6 hours a day, minimum. That may be that one agency's non-negotiable or that type of care. And does that fit for you or not? If it doesn't fit, cut it out, right? And so the task is about narrowing down the options through process of elimination, because again, nobody has time to research or explore all 1,800 places, and you don't have to. The key is to really cut out what's not relevant to you. And so when you think about non-negotiables, that could be price. Non-negotiables could be level of care. Like if I'm not ambulatory, I already know that independent living and maybe assisted living and maybe even daycare programs, not an option for me. That cuts out 300 facilities and services right there. So it's about narrowing down the options as opposed to saying, well, gosh, what do I need? Let me look here. Oh, wait, no, I heard about this place. Oh, I seen the ad on TV for Kahala Nui. Oh my gosh, they charge, this much. It's just too hard to do it based on what you need. So instead, look at what's out there and cut out what's not appropriate. Okay, so that's a really important tip as you start to finally think, okay, I got to take action now. The fourth tip is revel in the relationship. And this is kind of a, silly thing to some people, but I do say that this is one of the most important things when you think about the fit of somebody providing care to your loved one, your kupuna at home, or maybe in a facility. We're getting more and more into the less of the logistics and more into kind of where it's important to us in our spirit, in our core. And this is a very important one. One of the best gifts that a family can give a caregiver is trust and support. Anybody already hired a caregiver or had somebody help you at home, or even maybe with your kids? Yeah, I'm seeing a little bit of nodding. The best gift that the person who is needing help can give to that caregiver is their trust that they're doing the right thing and the support to help them. Without it, it goes out, the relationship fails already. The best gift that a caregiver can give to the family is a peace of mind that they're not cutting corners, that they have the best interest in mind, that it's not about the caregiver's convenience. It's more about the one that they're caring for and how the caregiver is doing things to give that family that peace of mind to know that they are doing the best that they can. And this relationship is so important, in any situation. Even if I find the most perfect facility or perfect caregiver, if this fails, it's a problem. Caregivers are not robots, as you probably know. If you're a family caregiver, you have feelings. It doesn't feel good if your parents are telling you that you're doing a terrible job or whatever it may be. Caregivers are not robots, we're people. And kupuna are not a collection of tasks, right? We're, the people receiving the care also have feelings and emotions and their needs. And if they're just treated like a collection of tasks, then the situation gets really bad quickly. So the relationship between the caregiver and the caregiver's, the kupuna's family and the kupuna is very, very important. I'd like to say, think of it like you're preparing for marriage. This is the dating game, which is a show on TV where people would actually, there's a wall here, so they got to talk to the suitors and say, well, tell me about your most ideal date, and maybe I, want to go on a date with you, right? But this is a marriage. It may not seem like that. You might not be married. You may even be divorced. But if you're bringing in somebody to care for your loved one, you're getting into a marriage again. It's all over again, and it's easy to think of bringing on a caregiver or going to a care facility as a transaction. Oh, just give me what I need. I just need somebody to come to take care of my dad as he takes a shower. But unfortunately, we're dealing with people and emotion, and so it's not possible to just say, until there is some kind of robot that really is going to give your mom a shower or take your mom to the toilet. We have to work with people's feelings. We have to work with people's personalities, all of this kind of stuff, right? And so preparing for a marriage, if, I think about my marriage, I say, oh my gosh, okay, I gotta, there's all these things that I'm still learning about, and how do I work with my spouse? How do I work with a caregiver to make sure that they are gonna give me the peace of mind that I'm looking for, and they feel like they're being trusted and supported? So the relationship is huge, big, big, big. The last tip, here, spotting a healthy relationship in the caregiver and care receiver relationship. Can you see yourself actually liking this person? If they're coming to your house every day, like, do you want them in your house? Do you like talking about their personal needs or what they do on their free time? This is a big one. What will it be like to communicate with this person? what are they saying or not saying that is going to give you the peace of mind? Vice versa, what are you saying or not saying that's going to make them feel like you trust them? Oh, I want you to take care of my dad. And by the way, I have all these nanny cams in the house that are going to watch you while you're taking my father to the toilet. Okay, don't worry. I'm just going to be at work, but I'm going to watch you constantly. That relationship is going to be kind of strained at the get-go. But what is said and not said, oftentimes, caregivers want to be very, very, very accommodating. Caregivers, it's a thing from the heart. Nobody becomes a caregiver unless either they have to, because you're a dutiful son or daughter, or because you like it and you want to. And in the latter category, they want to be very accommodating. They want to be making sure that the person they're caring for feels loved and supported. And so oftentimes they may not say something that they should say. They may not say, gosh, I don't feel comfortable doing that because maybe I'm not strong enough, or I don't really know about dementia or Alzheimer's, so I don't know how to help your mom do this. A lot of times to a caregiver, take it from me, working with caregivers for years, they feel very embarrassed sometimes to say, I can't do it, or I don't know how to, and being able to set those boundaries. And without that communication, sometimes the relationship already starts to be on rocky ground, because now there's a trust issue. It's like, oh, I thought that they said that they could do it, and now I'm seeing that they don't know what they're doing. Maybe I gotta be more distrustful, and then the caregivers feels that, right? They'll feel that you're not giving them the support they need, and then it becomes this downward spiral. Do the caregivers actually listen? Do you actually listen to what they're saying if they're giving you feedback, right? For the caregiver, are they looking at their convenience or the well-being of the person they're caring for? Because there's always a decision that can be made. Do I do what's convenient for me as a caregiver, or do I do what I should do? Sometimes it's the same thing, but a lot of times there's a decision that gets made there. And in my care home, we really, of our operational core values as our team, this is the number one. We always act in our residents' best interest, because there's always a choice. Take it from me, when I'm watching my kids at home on the weekend, do I look at my phone and try to do some work, or am I going to engage with them, right? There's always that choice that can be made as a caregiver. Does the caregiver even know their own strengths and weaknesses? Or do you even know your own strengths and weaknesses as a person who's bringing on this caregiver? Are they being very transactional and not really focusing on that peace of mind? Because these are all questions that can either make or break the relationship. And the last tip is very similar to that. Let me remove this just so you can see it, okay? The last tip is to have your eyes of the prize. So examining your expectations. So hard to find good help these days, says the fat cat millionaire. It's hard work to be a caregiver. Again, who's taking care of somebody at home? Yep, it is hard work. And I congratulate you and support you, because and especially if it's your family that you're taking care of. It's a lot harder for family members to take care of other family members than it is for us professionals to do it. It's hard to be a caregiver, and therefore mismatched expectations can really break that relationship 100% when the expectations are off. I have families, let me see what the next slide is here. I have families that expect things that we can't deliver. And if I can't come out at the outset and say, that's not something we can do, then the expectations are off from the get-go. So as an example, at my care facility, flat out, I say we do an excellent job at caring for our residents, giving medications and following the law. As I mentioned, no citations. Cooking is not like our main strength. at our home. We make nice meals, and I actually get meals delivered from another care facility. But if you're looking for like a restaurant quality food, like my care home is not the place for you. I say that flat out from the very beginning because I want them to know and expect what's realistic and not what's going to be their most ideal, right? And if they know that and they still come to my care home, we agree. Okay, you're going to be well fed and nourished at my home, but you can't order anything 24/7 in the kitchen, even though some people still try, right? Another mismatch expectation is, well, I'll go through this list because it's very important. You have to examine your expectations when you're looking at the care. Okay, these are some very important ones that are very common. There's more, of course, but how do you and the care person providing the care, be it your sibling or a professional, how do you define what is successful in this situation? Is it that mom is going to get out every day and go to the mall every day? Or is it that dad is going to just have a BM every day? Like, how do we define the success? Because oftentimes families, again, taken from my personal experience running a care home, families at times will have a lot of nice to haves that they want to see. The need to haves maybe are very low, but then there's this long list of nice to haves. And if I'm not able to meet that, then sometimes the nice to haves kind of cloud the way they feel about the service. So how is success defined? How is a good value for the cost defined? If my sister is staying up all night to take care of dad, and we're not paying anything to her, then, oh, I think that's a great value because she's doing it. But she might not feel that way. She might say, well, we're not paying anything, but what's the cost to me? So how is good value defined by the caregiver and by the family? Who's in control? Who gets to make the decisions? You know, if I go to a facility, do I get to tell them like, you know, I want you to do this for my mom or dad? Or who makes the decision if there's some kind of health issue or challenge that comes up? And as we know from the previous tips, there's always something that comes up. Who gets to decide? That's a very important thing to kind of hash out from the beginning. How involved should the family be? So if I'm hiring a caregiver to come to my house, again, I really appreciate you coming to help my dad. I have 10 cameras around the house and I want you to do your thing in my house. It's okay, it's okay. Except I'm gonna watch you as you're taking care of my dad. My cameras actually have a microphone. I can talk to you in, right? Which I do that sometimes to my mother. Yeah, so how involved should the family be in this relationship? Because some places, especially facilities, might not welcome that. If you ever heard of helicopter parents? Yeah, where they're always hovering around. Well, there's helicopter children out there. And it's okay if it's maybe at home, because that's the relationship and that's the setting where the helicopter children are welcome in their own space. But if it's in a facility, then the helicopter children are not welcome. It is a no-fly zone in the facility because sometimes that gets in the way, right? This is another kind of deeper one that we don't tend to think about. But do families need to be handheld along the way, or do they need to be left alone? Sometimes people hire help because they're too busy. They cannot think about this stuff. I got a job. I got my own kids. I got my own family. I can't think about mom or dad. And so I don't want to be brought with all these things, decisions, every decision. Do you want me to give your dad papaya or bananas today? Does he need his medication like next hour or like this afternoon? Oh, sometimes people don't want to think about those details, right? And so if you're bringing on a caregiver at home, you really want to hash out, are they going to be wanting to tell you everything every step of the way? And maybe you want that, maybe you don't. And so how much hand-holding does the family need? Other families really need a lot of hands-on. You know, this a lot of times in my home, again, we're not just working with the resident, we're working with the whole family, because this is a journey for them together. It's not just for their loved one at our home. And does the family need to hold on to something tighter, or do they need to let go of something? You know, this is for you families, but also if you're the caregiver and in the example, let's say, you know, my sister, I'm taking care of my dad, but my sister is holding on to this idea that dad needs to exercise in a certain way. Well, maybe I think that my sister needs to let go of some of these expectations, let go of the past, let go of the worry about something, right? Sometimes people really need to let go. Other times they need to hold on to something tighter and say, hey, your mom needs attention, or mom needs help, and you're too far off looking at your own family's needs, but I'm sorry, who else is going to do it? I'm staying up at night, every night, helping mom in the toilet, right? You need to hold on tighter to this and make sure that we're in a better relationship, right? So that's something that, again, everyone's situation is different, but it is an issue. And then how much expertise and experience do you really need from this person? Let's say, you know, the example of somebody, that 80-year-old who's living at home, a little bit forgetful, maybe starting to forget to eat or drink at times because, you know, they're watching TV. Do I really need the RN to come over and do their nursing things? Or maybe I just need somebody who's very seasoned at being able to say, hey, you know, Mrs. Nakamoto, let's go for a walk. That might not require a lot of training or expertise, but it does come from experience, knowing how to kind of move somebody and engage them, right? That's another factor for thinking about expectations. So these are very common ones, some of them less common than others. But as you think about the match, oh, again, this can make or break the relationship and make or break the situation, so it's not a good fit. Yeah. Okay. So your expectations are one of the few things when it comes to caring for others or receiving care that you have total control over changing or pushing onto somebody else. And it's a hard pill to swallow sometimes when I realize that my expectations maybe are not realistic, but I'm in total control of what I expect from that caregiver. And vice versa, they're in total control of what they expect to be providing to me. It's just, how do you examine it? What's your eye of the expectations to say this is a good fit or it's not a good fit? Okay, scary thing. I mean, like it kind of comes down to the core of when we think about aging, about eventual decline and death. You know, sometimes we use expectations as a way to cope. Other times we don't have expectations because it's too difficult to cope. So it's something to kind of do a little soul searching on. Okay, so repeat after me. I will focus on the one and only me. I will focus on the one and only me. Okay, I will adjust my plan and adapt to changes. I will adjust my plan and adapt to changes. I will research only for relevance. I will research for relevance. I will revel in the relationship. I will revel in the relationship. Yep. I will examine my expectations. My expectations. Okay. And I don't have to do it alone. And I don't have to do it alone. That's right. In this case, well, let me say that in this case, you have support. It might not come from your siblings who are not in town, not from them, you're telling me, but there are other people, there's a community, there are professionals out there, and I have resources. So, Kupuna Care Pair is this website, and I know that you all registered online for this seminar, but you may not have seen the website. So it is a platform that demystifies long-term care and really saves your time by simplifying the process for you to compare and understand the services out there, okay? I have a lot of tools on this website. Everything I've learned over the last, gosh, what is it, 12 years that I've been in senior care, I put on this website. And the first thing is this quiz, this self-service quiz to quickly identify, or really, as we're talking about, narrow down, cut out options that are not appropriate. This quiz, multiple choice, no personal information collected, and you can keep doing it over and over again. And based on your answers of those 8 questions, it will spit out through process of elimination about 30 different possibilities of what might be appropriate for your loved one, based on their care needs, based on their budget, based on their personal preferences. So as an example of cutting out, again, like my budget, if I have a fixed budget I can pay for already, that's going to disqualify a whole set of these options that we talked about. If I have mobility issues and I'm unsafe at home, well, then that's going to disqualify a whole bunch of other options out there. And so this I developed with an actual computer programmer, and it's based on my conversations I have with families constantly, saying, gosh, you know, you're giving me this description of your dad, and I think that, you know, because of these reasons, you should look at this type of thing. Look at an adult daycare program because it's going to be in your budget, that sort of thing. Okay, so there's a self-service quiz, no personal information collected, so you don't have to worry about your privacy. There's my elderly care knowledge base, and it's collected from all of these different bodies of the government, as well as mostly from my own personal experience running a care home. And there's a description of every type of main category of care that if you just need to know the basics, what is home care, daycare, foster care homes, nursing homes, what's the difference? What do they cost? That's on the website. That will give you a quick and easy way to just, again, start to research only for relevance of what you need now. And this is an ongoing thing. You know, I have a blog on there. And so every time I encounter a family who's saying, gosh, you know, I'm feeling so guilty about this, or maybe my mom, I'm having this issue with my brother about like how to plan for this. I write these blog entries based on real life examples of, like that gentleman I mentioned who had to move to an assisted living facility and had a horrible time. Well, now I have this blog post about how do you pick the right size of the care setting? Should it be one-on-one at home? Should it be in a small facility, a large facility? So there's the knowledge base of what I have. And then lastly, I have what I call this elderly care marketplace. So anyone ever booked a hotel online? Usually you have these websites that you search for Honolulu, Waikiki. I need a hotel in Waikiki. It comes up with all these listings, kind of like also actually real estate. You know, if I'm gonna buy a house or something, you have these listings of all these facilities. And if I click on one of these, I see pictures, I see the pricing, I see information about what they can offer, and you can actually filter by different criteria. You can't really see it, but there's criteria about the price they charge, or their amenities, like do they have private bedrooms, or do they allow me to bring my pet, or do they require me to be vaccinated for COVID? There's about 100 different criteria you can use to filter options, and this is about, there's about 160 residential homes on here right now. It's a good cross section of the market, just for you to understand, well, what is out there? What's it going to cost me to put my loved one in a home? And what does $5,000 a month actually get me, right? Or where is it going to be? So this is a really great way to kind of find facilities, understand them, and understand the market. And each one of these listings is managed by the facility. They put up their own photos, they put up their own information. You can even click a button to send them a message, and then they'll respond to you and they'll say, oh, well, come for a tour, why not? So this is a third element of Kupuna Care Pair's website that's very useful, especially when you're needing to understand what's available. And I have a cheat sheet that I can give to you. I do ask if you can submit an evaluation form. I'll give you that cheat sheet. And on it if you can share positive feedback with us so that Elderly Care Division will continue to support our seminars. But I wanted to open up for questions right now, and I didn't even look at the time. It's right on time. Any questions about what you saw or your personal situations that you're having as you go through this? I know it's a lot. It's a lot. And luckily, there's a recording being done of this, so you can watch it again. And I do have, I'm sorry, there's, I do have this evaluation on a form, you can do it on your phone, but otherwise I have paper copies, and please do consider filling out this evaluation so I can better improve the services, also know what other topics you might be interested in. I'll give you the cheat sheet anyway, regardless. I'm not going to hold that against you. But please do give feedback. And I do have upcoming seminars. If you haven't signed up already, the next one is on May 13th. So the topic is the most important questions to ask potential caregivers of what you're looking for in them. Honestly, it's also asking yourself questions about yourself. June 24th is how to decide on the most important care priorities for your kupuna. So that those little overlapping circles that we talked about, we'll get a little bit more in depth and do some work. Yeah. Yes, the recording will be. And you can also, I know a lot of you had registered before I had the Zoom option, but I just got a lot of feedback saying, oh, is there a Zoom option? So I do have that now. If you can't attend it in person, which I know, we have seniors at home, you can attend that way. August 5th is a really good introduction to what's out there. And I go through the different types of care, the pros and cons, because there's always good things and bad things about care homes or foster homes or nursing facilities. I introduce all those different types of options, and then you can ask specific questions about it, or we talk about pricing. Just a really good primer on the basics of what's out there in our state. And then the last one of this series is the pros and cons of care at home. How do I extend my loved one's time at home? What are the costs of doing that? Everyone's situation is different. And I just talked to a daughter yesterday who, was thinking, well, I'm looking for home care to somebody coming into my house to take care of my mom, and they charge $30 an hour, but I need it overnight, 8 hours a day. And I think, oh gosh, $30 times 8 hours a day times 365 days, that's a lot of money. Maybe you might think about other options. So there are pros and cons, as we know, but this is a very common situation for families to start out in. It's just thinking about what's the timing for the future. So that's on August 26th. I also have some unscheduled topics. This might be for 2023 with elderly affairs, but pitfalls to avoid when you're working with caregivers, managing the cost of care. This is a big one, right? Fitting in with the cool kupuna. So this is really kind of like, okay, thinking about the setting, the size of the setting, if you have to move a loved one into a facility, what are the right things to look for them to make sure that it's the most engaging, inclusive experience for them, and not ending up like the gentleman I talked about. And then in between these, I'll be at other events too. And there's like a Generations magazine has this Aging in Place event in August. I think the Hawaii Gerontology Society has something. So I'll be around here and there too. But any questions as we close? Yes.
Maybe for future reference, say if legal issues, say like end up having to bring someone into your home.
Yes.
Are you obligated to let them know, hey, you got cameras, or?
Oh, okay.
Is it one of those things that
Yeah. So the question is, it's for the people on Zoom. I'm talking to the microphone. The question is, if you're bringing somebody into the home and you have cameras, are you legally obligated to tell them that there's cameras, right? My short answer is, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know. But from my understanding, people do that all the time. with kids, nanny cams. And we are so used to a society now where there are security cameras everywhere. I would say that there are a lot of benefits to sharing that information with the caregiver, regardless. Again, when you think about the relationship, you want to start off on a good foot. You want the caregiver to know that you trust them. Now you can say, well, trust but verify, but you want them to know that you support what they're doing. And even though there are cameras, it's just kind of something that's more passive. I'm not going to be breathing down your neck or something. Now, if you do plan to breathe down their neck, you might need to tell them that up front, because maybe the expectations are not matching again. Those are all part of the conversation you have as you're, as you're dating this person. Before you get married to them, you date them and you say, you don't you don't want to be dating and things go well, and then you say, oh, let's get married, and then they come back and they say, oh, by the way, I have 3 kids I didn't tell you about, right? So it's the same for the cameras. Ideally, for that relationship to thrive and flourish, you want them to know that it's kind of out there, but it doesn't mean that you're going to distrust them, right? So that's a tricky one. Yeah. Okay. Mm. Yeah. Oh. Oh. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's about the attitude and how you approach this relationship. And I'll take it a step further too. In our facility, we have families that have cameras. They bring in their own, and they have, in the past I've had them bring in just straight up security cameras. And then nowadays they have these little things, these consoles where they can drop in and they can see what's going on, and they can even talk to the person, right? And we at our home welcome that. We feel confident enough that they're not just doing it to breathe down our neck. But we also know that if that's what it takes for them to feel a little bit more peace of mind at the get-go, then we'll do it. Because oftentimes what ends up happening is they stop watching it. They start feeling like, okay, we feel comfortable that we can trust this person. Yeah. So it's tricky, but it's important.
I might be able to help.
Oh, okay.
Because I shoot video a lot.
Oh, okay. Our videographer, Jonathan.
But I think the idea is if you have a reasonable expectation of privacy. So if I go to all one, I might be recorded. Guaranteed. You have no reason to.
Oh, okay.
If someone's in your home, it's their private residence. So do you have a reasonable expectation of your own privacy in someone else's home?
Oh, great point, John. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, John who's doing it. Thank you, John, for doing our video too. He's recording it so that you can all watch it later. If there is a reasonable expectation of privacy, then maybe you should not. So you should tell them. No.
Yeah, I mean,
or
you're right about morally.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. What is the expectation of privacy?
So I walk into your home, I have no.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Are there other questions about this? I mean, that's a very good topic, and I have on my evaluation form a spot where it asks if there's other topics that you want to know about that I can share information. But other questions, or maybe on Zoom, John, I don't know if you're able to see if anyone wrote anything. Yeah. Yeah. I have a way to show you that. And let me say that, like, if you need to leave, please feel free to go. But if I show you, let's see here, I think my screen is still shared. here, sorry, I can see chat here. Is the evaluation form available here? Let me, oh, okay. Let me, sorry, let's see here. Marketplace. Okay, so, share screen, share my, okay. So now this is the marketplace here, and it's marketplace.kupunacarepair.com. And if you go on the website, you can find information. We have all listings here. And on this, you can find people by what kind of services they provide. So right now, this marketplace only has residential facilities on it. And if I go to, say, Zen Residences here, I click on this, I can see photos. Oh, okay, looks nice. You know, I didn't realize that there's such a place over in IAEA. And then I can look at information about their facility, the type of services they provide. Of course, the only licensed facilities are on here. What are some of the amenities? Do they have private bedrooms? Yes. Oh, no private bathrooms though. So maybe I'm not going to call them. What are some of the services that they provide? What kind of COVID precautions do they have? What kind of staffing do they have? Is it nurse aides? Is it RNs? Is it something else? What is their staff resident ratio that we talked about? What kind of languages can they provide care in? What kind of payment do they take? Do they take Medicaid? That's a big one. Are there fees that they charge for other things? And then if I like what I see, I can click on this box here that says contact this provider. And it sends me a little box here, and I can send a message to Zen Residences. I'm not going to do it because it's going to go to them, but it says, hey, I like what I see. Can I take a tour of your home? And they'll write back to you, and you chat back and forth. And then if it works out, then great, you made this connection. You can filter these listings by things like vacancy, by price. So like right now, I think I mentioned there's like 150 of these places. But let's say I need vacancy now. Immediate availability. Let me filter that down. And so instead of all these options, now there's fewer options to look at. There's still quite a few. Now, let's say immediate vacancy, and I am looking for long-term care with hospice. You know, not all facilities take me through hospice. They don't want somebody passing away in their home. So then I update that view, and now there's even fewer homes that I can look at. There's still a lot. And now let's say I want a private bedroom. I'm gonna update that. Let's see how few there are now. There's still quite a few. There's still quite a few homes that have a private bedroom, immediate availability. They will work with me for hospice. But let's cut down the price here. Let's say that I'm looking for something no more than $6,000 a month. Okay. Then we update that view, and now, oh gosh, how many places are there? There's quite a few. Let's say 5,000 a month even, you know, less than 6,000. And now it should be cutting down. See, now there's fewer options here, right? This is all about, if you're actually looking to move into a place, this is about cutting out everything so that you don't have to spend time making phone calls. That takes so long. Whereas if you are just looking for what's available in the market, then you can see all the listings. But then at this point, then now I know that I just need to contact fewer places and not be in such a rush, because that rush is what makes it stressful, as we talked about, right? So there's that. There's also one other thing that I want to show you, which is families also put up their own listings. And these families, often right now, the ones that are still there are looking for Medicaid beds, which is kind of hard to find. But these families are putting up a listing where Beth has a listing of looking for care for her 83-year-old mother. And Beth's mom, oh, sorry, this listing is already closed. She already found somebody. Beth puts out information about her mom's needs. She takes medicine, 24 hours insulin. She doesn't eat hard foods and do these things. Here's her height, her weight, her age. This is how she can pay. She needs care immediately. And then if Beth was willing to put a monthly budget, some people don't. And then once this listing goes on there, then the facilities reach out to Beth and they say, I got a vacancy for you. And then that creates a way for Beth and the facility to connect more quickly and easily without having to sort through all this stuff. Because as a care facility, I tell you, I get a lot of phone calls from families where it's not appropriate. Maybe I don't have vacancy at that time. Maybe their budget is lower than my base rate. Maybe they have a dog that they need to bring into the home and I don't want pets in the home. There's all kinds of reasons why it's not a good fit. But I end up taking that phone call and they end up making that phone call. And that's like 5 minutes out of our day. Multiply that by like 60 homes or whatnot. It's a full-time job. People whose full-time job it is to find vacancy are so stressed out by it. So this is it's a two-way thing. And thank you for asking that question because it's not the end all be all. You still have to go and see these places. But at least you can quickly and easily know what's out there and contact them. So there's no cost to the families, although there is a fee to the facility for them to use this website. And it's not a comprehensive thing. There is, if you did want to look for everything, then there is a map that you can look at. And this is a different part of the website for families. And you have families who are just starting out. This is the knowledge base I talked about, where you can take the quiz and you can learn about what adult daycare is or home care or assisted living, all these different things. You can take my quiz. And then if you're not just starting out, but rather you're searching for care now, if I go here, I'm searching, there's the marketplace I mentioned, but there's also this comprehensive map statewide. This is like the only map I know of on the entire internet that has everything licensed and certified. Okay, so if I'm looking for something and look at it, gosh, I hear a gosh, it's like, that's overwhelming. But let's say, I'm looking for, oh yeah, 1,800 places, but you can filter. So you filter by, okay, I don't need a care home. I don't need a foster homes. I'm really looking for an assisted or an independent living facility, which is kind of like a retirement home. So let me just narrow that down. Now I can look at and see, okay, well, there's fewer of them here, and I don't need to call as many. But this is databases from the Department of Health and also from the DBED, like Hawaii Development or Housing something, for senior housing. And so then I can click on one of these and I say, okay, well, this one's in my neighborhood. Let me get in touch with Pauahi Kupuna Hale and see if they have vacancy or what their services are. So this is not as convenient as the marketplace that I showed you, but it is comprehensive based on everything out there. Okay, any other questions? I want to be respectful of your time. Yes. Oh, yeah. The seeking care listing is great for respite care. Yeah. So if you're not familiar with respite care, it's short term and usually kind of sometimes planned, like I want to go on vacation or something. Sometimes it's unplanned because I'm so burnt out taking care of dad that I just need a break, right? The challenge with respite care is matching the timing of my need for that care and who's available to actually provide it. So if it's a caregiver coming to the home, a little bit easier. If it's a facility, us care facilities, we don't know when we have vacancies. At my facility, it's usually when somebody passes away. And so it's hard for me to say, when somebody comes to me and says, I need respite care, I say, well, yes, we're willing to do respite care. This is what it would cost. This is our service, but I don't know when it will be available. And vice versa, they may have a set date. It's, I got to go to my kid's graduation, or I have an operation coming up, right? And so the marketplace is actually very useful for that. And anything that's kind of last minute or just in time, where, maybe we haven't planned in advance, but I know that I have to get something now. That seeking care listing that the family creates for their loved one is a great way to just put it out there. And there's about 100 facilities on that marketplace, but there's also about 80 more homes that don't aren't so savvy to put up their own listing, but they use it. And so when they see those listings, then they all come out of the woodwork and say, I have availability on those dates, come for a tour. And so it's just a way, again, to find each other quickly and easily without having to call each one. So respite care, that's a good model for respite care, because otherwise people spend too long on the phone. Okay. Yeah. So we'll talk about that in that other presentation. But there's no standards for residential facilities, and there's just no standards generally. It's all market based. So what does a facility, what does a home care agency charge? It's based on whatever they set it at. And some places, will have monthly fees. Some places have buy-in. Some places do all this kind of stuff. So there is a little bit of a way to filter that kind of thing out. But understanding the cost and really kind of determining if you feel like this is a good value, there's like a whole nother talk that we have. Yeah. Oh, well, so you can think about it in terms of what the market offers. And like, if you go on the website and you see the marketplace, most private beds in these residential facilities are somewhere between 5,000 to 6,000 starting a month. And then you have outliers. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? I know we could, yeah. So when I say that, that's usually referring to base rate. Sometimes, like everyone does different kinds of pricing, so they may have additional pricing on top of it, but there's no standard for that even. Some places will charge you a flat rate if you are not ambulatory. Some places have a sliding scale. A lot of times that also corresponds to what kind of room maybe. So like if private room is usually more expensive than shared room. And those details, again, there's not a lot of standards. It's all market based, and even within that one company. So I mean, like there's information out there, but it still takes kind of reaching out to them. I think the best way to think of it is if their base rate is more than you think is good for the long-term budgeting, then maybe it's not a good option, right? You got to start looking at something lower. Or as you get a sense of what's available, I mean, at that 5,000 to 6,000 rate, you can assume that there'll sometimes be a private bed, maybe further west, Waipahu, Ewa Beach. They may have a private bedroom at that rate. These are kind of like generalities that you start to kind of pick out as you get familiar with what they offer. But then how they do pricing on top of that is sort of sometimes it's a black hole. People say, I don't know how they're charging me or what they're charging, So I have another presentation on that and kind of understanding, what is a good value. Yeah. Factors that increase the costs are the staff ratio we talked about. Factors like the size of the facility, because bigger facilities have to have commercial kitchens, they have to have fire sprinklers, they have to have a registered nurse, these things that add to the cost. So there are some benchmarks like that. Generally, the bigger the place, the more expensive it is. Generally, the more hands-on care they have, the more expensive it is. The qualifications, it's that one overlapping circle we talked about. So the higher the qualifications of the people that work there, the more expensive it is. Those are all factors. Yeah. Oh, John, we have questions online or? Anyone else? I could talk about this all day, but we have a whole series, and I hope that you will attend the other sessions. And if you can't in person, there's the Zoom, and then if you can't do that, there are recordings. But I do have evaluation forms back there. If you're more comfortable, I will also get you a little QR code. You can do it on your phone, or I'll send you the link follow-up as well. But I thank you for joining me for this inaugural session of our seminar series. I hope you found it useful, and I hope to see you again. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.